Welcome. My name is Sherry Forsyth and I'm a peak performance coach. And what I'm speaking about today is how we can challenge ourselves at any stage in our life, but particularly because many of us in the world are in lockdown at the moment. So over the next 3 or 4 weeks, I'm going to be discussing how to challenge yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, etc. So today I'm speaking about how we can challenge ourselves emotionally. There's a quote I'd like to read. If something that you're doing doesn't challenge you, then it doesn't change you. This is by an unknown author. So with mental challenges, it's very important, particularly now during lockdown, that we stretch ourselves a little bit. If you are feeling bored, then one of the remedies actually is to challenge yourself either physically, emotionally, etc., etc. Because being bored can lead to a lot of negative states. And if it's like chronic boredom, combined with the anxiety of uncertainty, not knowing what's going to happen at the end of lockdown, not knowing whether we have a job, very often the combination of those two is quite lethal. But boredom on its own, when you experience it for an extended period of time, can often lead to a depression. And that's what we're trying to avoid, is any of those negative emotions from coming out and affecting our lives. So have you been bored during lockdown? Or have you experienced boredom? Just taking a little bit of a break. I'm not sure if you can hear the bell ringing in the background. Our little community of Hilton, that bell rings every day at 12 o'clock to remind us of our lives with coronavirus, to remind us that there are many people who have lost their lives during this time, to remind us to care for each other. And just to put a little bit of a break in the middle of the day, just to ponder about what this COVID virus is doing to our lives. Anyway, so to continue with my video, have you been bored, or are you bored quite often in your normal life, not even your lockdown life? If you had, I'd love you to, in the comment box below, just write down the word bored, okay, so that I can see how chronic boredom is in our society. So getting back now to the way we're going to challenge ourselves, and today we're speaking about mental fitness. Many of us are very aware of physical fitness. We need to do the exercise in order to keep ourselves healthy and well. Many of us will make a New Year's resolution to be more physically fit. And how long does that last? Most of the time, not very long. In fact, only 8% of people manage to achieve their New Year's resolution. So that's not a great percentage. But there's a big pressure, and there's lots of speaking about making ourselves physically fit. But what about being mentally fit? Because in fact, being mentally fit allows us to have the discipline, the perseverance, and many other positive character traits that will result, in fact, in you being able to have the mind control to allow yourself to do some physical exercise. If we don't have mental fitness, we generally can't have physical fitness. So it's really important that we harness this mental fitness, or the mental challenges, to increase our self-discipline, to allow us to be better. Yes, maybe doing physical exercise, but in our whole lives. We'll be better in our jobs, we'll be better in our relationships. So one thing that puts a lot of people off any kind of challenges is that they feel they've got to take a risk and maybe they'll fail. Well, what about if we put into the forefront of our heads that there is no such thing as failure? There's only feedback, which will teach us whether we've done the right or wrong thing, and maybe we'll change how we're doing things, or alternatively, we might drop it altogether. But if we see that failure is not a possibility in our lives, and that really what we're looking at is anything we do, risky or not, we receive feedback which will allow us to learn and grow further. And this is a very important principle that can take away a lot of fear surrounding not being perfect and not being able to take the risks of doing something a little bit different. So I'm going to say today, take that risk. Give yourself that challenge. What have you got to lose? Before I go into, I'm going to speak about a few different ways you can challenge yourself mentally. I just want to mention that I don't want you to go overboard. You don't necessarily have to challenge yourself every day, because we are human and we do need to rest. So please don't overdo it. But in the same breath, let's see how we can challenge ourselves. So if you're challenging yourself mentally, basically there are two different subheadings. The first one is how we challenge ourselves internally, in other words, in our own mind and our own space. The second way to mentally challenge yourself is by doing other things that are outside of you that will stimulate and help you to grow. So here are a few ideas of how to internally mentally stimulate yourself. So the first one is that if we learn to calm down our minds by doing meditation, we can learn to let new ideas and new things in. So all that meditation does is it allows us to slow down and empty our minds. And there's no particular right way to do it. You can start by just trying to be empty in your mind, even if it's only for a minute, and then gradually build that up. The second suggestion is to start having a gratitude practice. And I use the word practice because it is important to think about our lives in a way of gratitude, but you need to do something concrete with it. So there are lots of ways that you can practice gratitude. You can Google those for yourself. But one of the best ways is either to have a journal or to speak it every day with a partner. The research has shown that just by practicing gratitude, it lifts us, it heals us emotionally, physically. So it's a really good thing to do. So that's the second thing. The third thing is just to have a journal generally to record what your thoughts are. What are your thoughts about being in lockdown? What are your thoughts about the possibility of a new job? What are your thoughts about the fact that our life has slowed down? The next suggestion is for you to be aware of how you speak to yourself. Many of us are very hard on ourselves. And so what I'm challenging you to do is to be aware of the dialogue and actually try to be kinder to yourself in your self-talk. The next challenge is to spend about 15 minutes a day on reflection. Just reflection. What's going on with you? What's going on in the world? Sit on your veranda, soak up some winter sun, and just be. It sounds easy to do, but actually it's much more difficult than that. The next challenge is to make yourself more aware of your feelings, more aware of your emotions. This is the first step to being emotionally intelligent, is awareness. So what are you feeling? Can you put a name to it? The next one is to ask yourself a question that you don't know the answer to, and then obviously find out what the answer is. The next suggestion is to evaluate your life and see if you are living it according to your values, and if not, to make sure that you realign your life to be living according to those things. And the last one I have for you for the internal mental training is, I'm going to challenge you to try during this time to give up one bad habit. whatever it may be. Whatever it may be. And if you manage, I'd love to hear from you. Okay, so if, as I'm speaking through these different suggestions, you find some are particularly appealing and that things that you will do, I invite you to put a comment in the comment box below, just by saying, I loved the suggestion on, because once again, it just is lovely feedback for me to have. So I would appreciate you doing that. So moving on to the external ways to mentally stimulate yourself, and that means we're requiring outside things. We're not just going to be living in our minds. Okay, so the first one is obviously to read novels, to read more serious books. For those of you who are big readers and feel you can't get out to a library or to buy some books, there's a fabulous free ebook library called Z Library, where you can get free PDF downloads of your favorite books. So if you just Google z-lib.org, that will take you into the site, and there are hundreds of books for you. So obviously reading is a good way to challenge yourself. The next one is to do a really tough thing, something that you really battle with, to try and do that maybe once a week, or if you find it too much, once a month. We can also choose to do an online course. There are so many available. There are so many that are free, free universities, free open universities. Go and Google them, and you can do online courses from anything from cooking, photography, to learning more about your particular chosen profession, to practical things like how to use social media, how to use Zoom, how to garden, you name it. So choose an online course that you would like to study and make sure you complete it. There are also lots of webinars that are available on a variety of topics that you can be included in. And those are usually with people who are very knowledgeable, and you've got a lot to learn from them. There are also, which are fabulous and only take 20 minutes, TED Talks, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. These are people at the cutting edge of their particular speciality worldwide, and they give us the wealth of their wisdom in 20 minutes. There's also a thing I would like to suggest. We all have dreams, and very often the reason that we don't achieve the dreams is because we don't put a time frame on it. So my challenge to you is to take that dream you have and put a time frame, in other words, a deadline, but also work out a timeline for your dream, and then start following it. You can also look at lots of documentaries, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Netflix, lots of documentaries about lots of things that we don't know yet. So a lot of these external ways of challenging ourselves is to do with learning and growing. Learning through books, learning through social media, learning through webinars, learning through TED Talks. And really then the last suggestion, which is very obvious I think to many people, is if there's a topic you don't know anything about, Google it, find out more, just because you can, just because you have the time to do it. So can you think of any other things that would help you to challenge yourself mentally? And if you have any ideas, I would love you to put them into the comment box below, so that other people can maybe really enjoy the ideas that you come up with. As always, I thank you for watching this video. I invite you please to subscribe to my YouTube channel on Sherry Forsyth and follow me there. Thank you for your support as always, And I look forward to chatting to you next time about how else to challenge yourself.